Okay, we have Young Dinosaur, a candidate master from Australia. He goes for the London system. Now, the setup that I like to go for in the London is this setup here where we take on d4 and then we harass the bishop. We kick it back with f6. And the idea is now that we are looking to come in with our knight. Our knight would be striking some of the dark squares here. Okay, he comes to c2. Now, it's not a move that actually I'm too familiar with. I'm used to some of the other approaches in this situation. So at this stage, I am out of book. So I'm simply going to castle here and just play some normal looking chess. Not going to take that bishop because then the opening of the h-file might be pretty catastrophic for me, actually. He takes, and now he is threatening to take on h7. So let's see, I'm going to play f5. It's probably not the best move, but we'll see. He plays g3, hitting my bishop. I am going to drop back to d6. Now he might continue to push forward once again. Okay, what do we have now? Let's just get developed. He brings his piece out. We line up our rook against the queen and the king. And my idea now is just to launch my pawns up the board. So I'm going to start with a6, b5. So this is kind of like a Sicilian defense position almost, with the kings on opposite sides of the board. Now I'm going to jump in here to c4, looking to open up some files if possible. Let's see. Okay, I'll take that, and so he has given me a hook as well, so I can very easily start opening up some files here. I can even actually press on with b5 immediately, because if he takes, I retake, and he can't capture back because of that. So I think I have accomplished quite a bit now with the opening of some of these files here. So I think I'm liking my chances at the moment with both the B and the C files opened up. I can potentially look to double up. I can potentially get my other rook on the B file as well. At this stage, I'm not sure which file it belongs to. Let's just lift up and think about that later. Okay, let's pile up here with pressure on B2. I am now thinking about potentially exchanging my D7 bishop. It's not the greatest piece. It was basically just being a big pawn. I'd need to recapture with the pawn though, because my queen is needed to guard D6. So I'm going to just pre-move recapturing of the pawn. Let's take here. And he does have pressure here, which, I mean, is it a threat? Let's have a look. I'm going to play here. The complications really begin if he takes with the rook. If he takes with the queen, I'm just simply taking his knight. So that's not an issue. But what I was thinking here, it's a bit cheeky, but he does have this idea now of taking on d6. But I had this really interesting idea of taking, opening up his rook here. So I'm not sure if it works out. It might be completely busted for me. His position looks really dangerous, but am I getting anything here? My idea is that if he moves his rook, I'm opening up more files against his king. Let's give a check first. That might be the more accurate way, because then I can probably pick up the rook with check. Let's give this check. Let's take here. Okay, notice this one. Important detail. I can come in here and start checking his king from behind. Let's go here. And I might just be picking up the piece here. Okay, I think I'm winning. I just need to play nice and quickly here. Okay. This should be completely over now. I just need to make sure that I don't get checkmated, and that should be the end of that. He's going to give a check, but it doesn't really mean anything because I'll just double up against his pawn and pick it up. So this should be a nice and easy game here. Okay, steps up. Now he does also have this pawn here. Let's see if this amounts to anything. And checkmate. Good game, young dinosaur. Thank you. All right, let's unpack that game and have a look at the review. Okay, let's see. Alrighty, so we have 72 and 77, so not the greatest accuracy by both of us, to be honest. Okay, so let's play through the game and see where the critical moments were. Now, once again, with the London system, from the black side, this is my favorite way to diffuse the London. We first capture the pawn, and then we play knight to h5, harassing the bishop. It's a really easy way to just say a big capital NO to white in terms of his dangerous kingside initiative that he likes to get in the London system. So we play knight h5. Now, most master level games, the bishop actually drops back to e3, but this move here, bishop to g5, when playing non-masters, it's almost exclusively played. People just naturally get drawn to this move. But it's not actually that good, because after we play f6, he drops back to h4. And now our idea with bishop to d6 is that we are preventing him from developing his bishop to the natural square because our knight guards that square. So it's actually a pretty strong continuation for black. He plays queen to c2. Now, one of the other interesting attempts that white can make in this position is they can jump into e5 here. Now, this is a very tricky line that I've faced many times. It looks crazy at first, but the idea is white has now unleashed his queen onto the knight, and I can't take the knight with the pawn because that opens up his bishop against my queen. So it's a pretty tricky line. The main thing that we need to focus about in this line is that we simply don't lose our knight with check. So just playing g6 and black is completely fine here. But in the game, he plays queen to c2. Okay, we castle. And now, okay, knight to f4 is given as a miss here. Apparently e5 immediately was very strong, and the computer gives de, fe as being very, very strong for black. And we can see the white king is stuck in the middle of the board. Our knight is very active. We've got a big center. Okay, next time, keep that in mind, that the immediate e5, very crushing. Okay, instead we play knight f4, he exchanges, we take back, bishop to d3, and in this position the computer is saying that black is now with a fairly comfortable advantage. I played f5, which was given a question mark. The computer wanted to play e5. Have a look at this. We give up h7 with check. The king moves out of the way. Now white moves back to g6, and we drop back to e7, hitting the bishop. Wow, I would not have found that, but this is something for me to analyze after the game, that sometimes in these London positions, we can just simply sack that pawn on h7 and just not worry about it, just dominate in the center of the board. Very interesting. Okay, so I played f5, probably a more human move, at least at my level. Maybe, you know, international masters and GMs might have just intuitively known that you can just give up h7 like this, but okay, I played f5, g3, we drop back. Where's our next critical moment here? It gives rook to c8 as an interesting move. It wanted to play knight to b4 immediately. Wow, in this position here, instead of rook to c8, which I played, the human move, the computer wanted to play knight to b4 immediately. If white were to take that knight, we come in here, and this is just absolutely crushing. Look at that. The queen is pinned to the king. He'd need to start throwing away pieces, and wow, absolutely incredible. So the computer gives just queen to b1, and now rook to c8. Very, very interesting play here. Okay, so I played rook to c8, a6, king to b1, b5, a3, knight a5. What else could we have done? Okay, that's still fine. Let's have a look at the next critical moment. It's given knight takes e5 as a mistake. What else did we have here? So apparently bishop takes e5, d takes e, and a5 was a much better continuation here. Okay, yeah, that knight is looking very strong here. Okay, maybe I should have taken with the bishop instead. I took with the knight, and then I dropped back to e7. My feelings in the game were that I needed to keep my dark squared bishop on the board, especially with all of my pawns on light squares. I felt that this piece was going to be playing a very important role in the game for me. f4. I also thought that this was a bit interesting because why is he just blocking up the f-file like that for him? I thought that instead of f4, he needed to play g4 immediately. And then I wouldn't be able to keep things closed with f4 myself because h7 is tender. Okay, so he plays f4. I played b4, which was given as a question mark. Apparently a5 was needed here. But I played b4, and he took, and I recaptured as well. Now, knight to f3 was given as a big blunder. I completely missed what the computer wanted to see. I played this natural-looking queen to b6. In this position here, unbelievable. Black can just take on c3. What is happening here? The point is that if white retakes, we simply just come into a5 with check. We are just threatening to absolutely demolish white. Absolutely incredible. But back here, we could have just simply taken the pawn and just casually just bring our queen out to a5, and white is basically toast here. It's given, the computer is giving knight d4 and not even just crashing through immediately. The computer's giving bishop to a4, and let's say, for example, we move out of the way, we take here, we are threatening all sorts of stuff here, and the computer is giving this as minus 7.3 for black. All right, some fascinating tactical shots here in this game. Incredible. Okay, I played queen to b6, king c1, I drop back to e7, knight to d4, we double up, rook to b8, that was fine. The computer was also thinking about bishop to c5, b3, and now we have a really interesting moment. So the computer has given b3 as a blunder. I played bishop to b5, which is given as a big miss. In this position, there was a really crushing move here, actually. Simply sliding our rook from b8 to c8. And it turns out that the pressure here is unfixable. Black is just crashing through here. He can't push his pawn forward because that would leave the knight hanging. And there's no real way of addressing that pressure. And white isn't even getting two rooks for his queen. Like if this were black's move to play, we'd be taking here. If white retakes the rook, thinking he's getting two rooks, well, actually no, we just move our bishop here, pin the queen, and it's lights out. Wow, so in this position here, just piling up on this weak pawn. Whenever your opponent makes a pawn move, think about what squares or what pieces or pawns are suddenly being weakened by that move. c3 now is terminally weak. Okay, I played bishop to b5, looking to exchange this piece. My thinking was that this piece is playing a pretty important defensive role against the white king. We have rook to a1. I exchanged the piece. And now in this position here, I had this like really interesting idea that I played out in the game. I played bishop to c5, and he took on a6, and I came to b7. And my idea was that I knew that he was going to take on e6 with his knight, as it's hitting the bishop, it's hitting the rook. It's incredibly active, but I had my eyes set on this long-range move here, in that once that knight moves, my pawn is suddenly mobilized, and I'm eyeing this loose piece here. It turns out white is completely fine here. He takes the pawn, which is indeed the best move. I played d4. The computer gives that as an exclamation mark. he takes on c5, which is now just a game-ending move here. So I come into g2 with check, and that's given an exclamation mark as well. I know that a lot of people here would just grab that rook immediately, but my idea was that if I give the check first, potentially the king goes to one of the squares on the back rank and I pick up the rook with check, which then gives me the move to play. So white avoids that by interposing with his queen. I give the check. The white king has to maintain contact with the queen. I pick up the rook, and from here on out the game is pretty much over. The computer is giving here mate in 23. So no, I did not see the mate in 23. Here I was just playing very naturally, and so the point of this check here is that we will be picking up the knight, and that's pretty much game over. There's no point going through the rest of the game. Okay, good game, Young Dinosaur. Thanks for the interesting game.